do, Eddie, and they are the founders of 117 Mandate, which is a ministry based on Luke 117, aimed at turning hearts and restoring families one home at a time. And they blend their love for personal growth, family, humor, and Jesus into their speaking, writing, and training. The resources help individuals and families define their purpose, experience true freedom, and heal their homes. And they have more than a decade of teaching and counseling experience, enabling them to reach others with truth, transparency, and strength, Eddie.
Yes.
And I want you to help me to welcome to Update Today, Harold and Cassandra McGee. Welcome to the program. I'm so glad you guys are here.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
So exciting.
What a blessing. I tell you what, you've got a great story to tell, a lot of things that happened in your marriage. You're a young couple.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Tell us how long you've been married and all that good stuff.
Well, we've been married for almost 8 years. It'll be 8 in July. Where we've known each other since 6th grade.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Who liked the other one first?
I don't know. We'll just say it was mutual.
Well, that's wonderful to see.
I picked on her a little bit, so I guess that meant I liked her.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what that meant. Well, it's, you know, being millennials, you guys are YouTubers as well.
Absolutely.
And I've been able to enjoy some of the ministry that you've put online. So first of all, just tell us, what is 117 Mandate?
Well, 117 Mandate, that's a ministry or something that the Lord gave me when I first started my seminary classes in 2013. And I was reading through the Synoptic Gospels. I was going through Luke. And you know when you read a scripture and it kind of jumps out at you?
Yes.
And you have to stop and say, okay, Lord, what are you trying to say? And so that's kind of what happened. And so as that scripture, Luke 1:17, jumped out, I kind of took a step back and I said, okay, Lord, what is here for me from this? And I got my journal, because every time that happens, I get my journal and pen and I'm ready to receive instructions. And so what I received was, you know, the scripture says that you will go before them in the power of Elijah, strength and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers back to the children, restoring the disobedient to the righteous, and making ready a people prepared for the day of the Lord. And as I read that, the Lord whispered in my spirit, that's what your family will be for this generation. And I was like, how? And so that's kind of what birthed 117 Mandate. And that was in 2013. And we tried to kind of get something off the ground then.
Yes.
But the Lord, he basically showed us that it's not the timing. I'm giving you a glimpse of what I have for you.
Wow.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare you so that you can steward it well. So that started a process of healing, of restoration, of a lot of tears, a lot of reconciliation. Yes. And so through those years, it took about, what, 6 or 7 years before the Lord finally birthed that in its fullness, because we had to be at a place that we can actually impact from a place of experience. And so that's where 117 Mandate came from, and why we're so passionate about it.
That's a good word.
Wow.
You know, but there's someone even watching right now, I'm sure, that's dealing with dysfunction and trauma and issues, and they want to hear what is the key and how did you deal with that?
Yeah.
In your marriages.
In your marriage.
Well, Cassie has an example that she uses. It kind of goes along with the question of the day that really helped us in our arguing and trauma that because what happens is, what we've learned is that we bring baggage from our upbringing and our family life.
Right. Yes.
And so I come from a very confrontational family.
Okay.
And so my family, we speak whatever's on our mind. We speak it, and we'll deal with the consequences later. But at least you know what I'm trying, what I feel.
I was complete opposite.
And you were opposite. Oh, okay.
We shut down.
So he would explode. He would explode, and you would kind of implode.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I come from a family that I was used to being challenged. My parents, they challenged each other all the time. And so Cassie, she was a little different, and she honored me, and I wasn't used to that. And so one of the ways that she honored me, when it comes to...
And being silent. Yeah, if I technically don't agree with something Harold says, and we're in a public area, or, you know, we're around friends or family, I'll be quiet about it. And when we get home, I'll appeal to him, you know, about the situation.
Now, did you blow up or just talk very nicely?
Well, it depends on what we're talking about. But I'll try to appeal in a way where we're not argumentative. But I would still respect them, you know, in that public eye, you know, and then we talk about it at home.
And, you know, it's really hard to argue with that. Because when she appeals to me, I'm thinking, I just made a fool of myself. But she let me save face. And
she
I'm like,
respected you.
Yes.
That's so wonderful.
And so I'm like, you know what? You're right. And, you know, I'm going to humble myself because you gave me the respect to let me save face in public. So now that I know better, but within the confines of our home. So when we go back out again, it's not, you know, I just told you to stop doing that. So I would say to someone who's dealing with that family trauma, who's dealing with that, you know, trouble, if you have a spouse that you're struggling with or you have children, is that, you know, appeal first, go to God, see what he would have you do. You know, there's a testimony that I have that, you know, in our marriage, we've only been married 8 years, but there was a time where my wife wanted to leave, and she wanted to pack up her bags and go. And so, and I was, you know, I had brought baggage with me. I was addicted to pornography. I was pleasing people that I shouldn't be pleasing. I was, you know, doing different things, not being at home, present at home, you know, being at home, but kind of in my own world.
Yes.
And so there was turbulence and there was tension. And what I had to do is I had to cry out to God. And I had to say, I had to find someone who I could confide in, who could give me sound wisdom and how to restore that rift that I created myself. And so that's the advice that I would give, is that find someone who's been where you're at and successfully gotten through it.
That's good.
And let them pour into you.
That's good.
So that you can pour into your own family and marriage.
You know, one of the things I remember hearing you say, too, in the video vlog that I watched, is how, Cassandra, you also had baggage. Can you share a little bit of how the Lord has moved for you?
Well, I grew up in a family where it was blended. My mom was my dad's second wife, and I was the youngest of the family. So, you know, I dealt with a lot of word curses spoken over me. You're the sensitive one, you're the bratty one. And I kind of carried that within my marriage to him. And I kind of had walls and barriers built up. And I always felt like he'd say, you know, he loved me and cared for me, but I always had deep down felt like he really didn't. And God had to deal with me and to really show me who I was. And I had to, you know, get with women of God that could help me break off those word curses spoken over me and to where I could be healed and to receive the love from the Father and ultimately from my husband. So
That is absolutely. And so you have... is it 2 children?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about, have you always agreed on how to bring the 2 of them together and raise them before the Lord?
Yeah, we did. We have for the most part. And our 2 sons, wonderful sons, Israel and Solomon, and in premarital counseling, that was one of the questions is, you know, how will you raise your children? And my dad was a very aggressive person. And see, I was raised up, she was raised in a blended family. I was kind of raised in a blended family, but my mom was my dad's mistress. So my dad had a whole nother wife and family outside of us. And so I always grew up thinking, am I a mistake? You know, am I accepted? You know, performing to get people's love and attention, you know, doing things like that. And so we both agreed before we had children, we're going to create an environment of forgiveness, of grace, and of acceptance. So when our kids make mistakes, our first reaction is not going to be to lash out at them, because that's what we received. It will be to talk to them so they can understand why we're upset, why we're grieved. Because sometimes if we just show our grief to the children, they understand, okay, I did something wrong. And so we agreed on that early on, and it has benefited us greatly.
That's powerful. And I think in the process of doing that, you create an environment of love in your home. And so, and then you destroy that wall of fear.
Yes.
Because I think fear is one of the biggest things that could just destroy a marriage or destroy a man if he's afraid to be expressive, or afraid to speak out, or afraid, and those kind of things. And so, but in your marriage now today, we're kind of wanting to bring it up to where you are right now. What's marriage like for you now to the point where I know that God has saved you both, God has brought you both together.
Yes.
And you love, and you can see that. You can see that interaction between you both, and then you minister together. What would you say right now to a marriage right now, a couple that's watching, that don't see how they can get through it?
And before you say, let me add to that. You mentioned something about pornography, and there are many couples that are dealing with that, don't know how to come out of it.
Yes.
Couples are breaking up as a result of that.
Yes.
Men don't know how to be set free. Include how you got free and begin to and can stay free as you address the people who are watching today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when God dealt with me in my life and my pornography and my addiction, so one thing that he did, he's placed me with men who would love me unconditionally. And what I mean by that is I will be able to bring to them my shortcomings, and they will not look at me differently in the lens of my shortcomings, but they will look at me in the same light as God saved me in.
Yes.
And so if someone's struggling, someone's dealing with something, whether it be pornography, whether it be gambling addiction, or whatever it is, I would highly suggest that you take the steps. One thing that I learned is that I didn't open up to my wife about my addiction until I had a plan to get free.
That's good.
That's good.
And so when I came to her and said, babe, this is what I'm dealing with, this is why I'm having outbursts, this is why I'm having, things is not going right, our finances are where they at, I said, but this is what I'm doing to get free. This is what God has given me to break free.
Yes.
And so when you come to your spouse with a plan, when you come to them with how God has convicted you, how he has broken you, it was easier for her to receive, okay, he's not just mad that he's caught. He's really trying to change for the betterment of our marriage. And so I would suggest that, seek God for clear instructions for what to do next, so that when you do come to your spouse for reconciliation, for appeal or common ground, that you know that God is in it, because you're not coming with something that you formed yourself, but you're coming with something that God has clearly given you based off his word and his spirit.
Yes. Wow. That's powerful.
Absolutely.
That was just absolutely powerful, and I can just feel God's presence. And they also have a book. It's called Healed Homes Family Devotional.
Yes.
Just briefly, 30 seconds, talk about it.
All right, Healed Homes Family Devotional. So what that is that me and Cassie, we wanted to impact as many people as possible in their lives and in their families and their marriages. And so what we did was we compiled 30 stories of our own testimonies that allowed people to get a glimpse into our life and how God healed us, how he restored us, and how he could do the same for them.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. That's powerful. Well, Judge, wow. What do you think about that?
Well, it's, again, wonderful to hear stories of how people are overcoming and getting great resources and finding good tips on how to get that restoration back in our family. So I'm excited to hear this great interview that you guys just presented to us, and I hope people will go there and get that book, and it'll be an encouraging to them. Well, right after this short break, we'll revisit our scripture of the day, and we want to share that with you, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.